there, folks. How's it going? This is not my normal stream time, so I have no idea how many people are watching now or who cares or whatever, but you know. Hmm. How do I look at the stream chat from the app? Hi there. Well, cool. Let's get started. Yeah, so this occurred to me pretty recently, really. You know, welcome normal folks who normally tune in for WOD Wednesday, where I stream Doom levels. But I thought I would do a stream here. I stumbled across this body of work, this series of things that a while ago, and I'd sort of kept it in a tab to check out at a later point. I don't actually know this artist's name per se, but their website is jlv.fi, and if you go to jlv.fi/places, that's the page for this series. And there's two related series of little, well, yeah, let's actually just read from the website. Places are small and atmospheric 3D paintings where one can walk around and spend a few minutes. And there's also a development blog. And on Twitter, they are KTCH0. And yeah, I was really struck by these things. It's really cool, and I was going to play through them chronologically. They're all very, very short. You just kind of dip in and, yeah, like it says, walk around and spend a few minutes. So I was just going to go through them in the order in which they were made, starting in 2013. And yeah, some of these only run in a web browser. Some of them have Linux native versions, which I'll play, and then other ones only have Windows native versions, which I will play in Wine here. But yeah, let's start off because I think, yeah, this stuff does just kind of speak for itself. So yeah, let's go to place one. And yeah, I don't think I can full screen this fully, but yeah, this is place one, and as you can see, it's a cool little snowy forest. There's actually snow falling, and it's probably real quiet compared to my voice, but there's like a little bit of audio ambiance. And it's just sort of what you would expect, you know, like maybe the wind blowing through the trees and stuff. And for these first few, WASD controls don't actually work. You just look left and right, up and down with the mouse, and then holding down the mouse button moves you forward. And yeah, and so these aren't like big scale environments. You know, it's not like there's a village that I'm going to happen upon, unless I didn't see it on my initial playthroughs before this stream. But yeah, and yeah, we can hit the edge of the world here pretty easily. And it's a very, you know, it's just an understated little edge, and that's clearly just that's the edge of the painting, you know? But yeah, and so there's going to be a series of these, and they all have a different like setting and a different time of year, and a really different just mood and art treatment for these things. And yeah, and I think like this probably the extents of this space are kind of like, you know, we're down in like this bowl here, and yeah, there are like these grasses that are sticking up through the snow, and then like some larger like reed type things. Again, we can back up with the right mouse button. And then some bigger little scraggly bushes, or maybe these are saplings or something. And then, yeah, the bigger trees, which really just create these bigger shapes, that is sort of what populates the horizon. And yeah, like as you can maybe tell, these are like, this is like 1-bit alpha, as it's called. What that means, for those who aren't like, game developers or graphics programmers or whatever, is that, there's polygons and textures, and when a texture has what's called an alpha channel, that defines the transparency of it. So it's got the color, which is comprised of different amounts of red, green, and blue, and then you've also got alpha. And when you have 1-bit alpha, that means that instead of variable levels of transparency, something going from like fully opaque to fully transparent in like a smooth gradient, it's just a sharp line, because any given pixel is either opaque or totally transparent. And yeah, it creates, once upon a time, that was the only kind of transparency you could do for like speed reasons and whatever. But now on modern hardware, you can do, it's sort of an artistic choice. And it definitely has implications for like how you render stuff and sort polygons, in the depth axis. But yeah, and so I don't know if like the 1-bit alpha was simply a technical constraint or something, or an intentional artistic choice. But either way, we can definitely just sort of evaluate it here, as we would just evaluate any kind of thing that we're coming across. And yeah, I like so there's also worth mentioning, in addition to like the terrain and these trees that are really just like little textured, yeah, that's worth pointing out, is that if you look down, you can kind of see how these are just like flat sheets that are sort of like crossed with one another. And then that's a very, very common trick. Like even very fancy games use that. And there are various techniques that attempt to like make that, to camouflage that approach, so that when you look down, you don't just see like the little two cards right on one another. But yeah, so those are the two obvious elements. And then you've got like the snow particles that are falling from the sky. And then you've also got this fog. You know how in Doom, when you look down a hallway and it diminishes into darkness, so it's almost like there's this dark haze the further away something gets in the rendered view. Well, this is really the same kind of thing, only it's doing it, and only it's brightening up. And that's to kind of create this sense of like a snowy haze, where, because yeah, if you've been out in snow before, you know that it like, yeah, things do kind of like white out at a distance if the visibility is low. And so yeah, that's another big thing. And yeah, what it does is it creates lots of different, it definitely gives you a lot of depth cues, so you can tell how far away something is, and it creates this sense of atmosphere. You can like feel the air having its own sense of presence. These aren't just like objects that are just kind of getting splatted up onto the screen. And yeah, and I think another thing about this is that the flatness of the sky and then the whiteness of the terrain make some of the native colors of this stand out, because if you look at this stuff, there is color. There's like sort of a deep green, and then that's semi-desaturated, and then like kind of a warmer color here. And that's really like, that comprises the palette. And it does get kind of like flattened out to gray in the distance here. But yeah. Yeah, and the snow particles are worth mentioning. I don't know how these are done. They do look like they have like this directionality to them. They're not just little square pixels, but they have like kind of a variable transparency or whatever. So yeah, that's place one. And I think that's about all. It's a nice little place. Like, yeah, it doesn't, where I live in California, it does not snow like this. But other parts of the country that I've lived in, it does snow like this sometimes. And yeah, I find this like a really pleasant little place to be in for a bit and think about my friends in parts of the world where, it is snowing like this, and it does get cold. So yeah, that's it for place one. And now let's go over to, let's see, is place two available for, okay, yeah, I think place two is another one that I'm going to have to open in wine. Yeah, place 2, Win32. So I'm launching this in wine from the command line. Okay, and now this is place 2. And yeah, you can tell that this has like a really different mood, and it's a different time of year, kind of. It's no longer winter, or if it is, it's not snowing. And we've got some like footsteps sounds. We're kind of like walking, crunching on the forest floor. And yeah, this almost feels like it could maybe be, no, I mean, these are different kinds of trees, you know, and I think each of these places / sketches that that this creator has done, they have like a different, you know, there's a different goal. Like these are different places, you know, and yeah, so here we can see like these trees that have like this deep reddish kind of feel to them, but it's like, it's either very overcast in the middle of the day or sort of like dusky, or maybe it's just before dawn or something. But again, the sky is like pretty flat, you know, in terms of color. There's not like a whole bunch of clouds, or, you know, you certainly can't see the sun or anything. But it is creating like this sense of atmosphere. And yeah, the foliage here is a lot taller. Like the grass comes up, it's pretty thick, you know, and we look down and it just kind of like feels like a more lush, even carpeting. And we've got these bushes that are pretty big, that really create shapes that are like kind of the scale of us, the player. And then we've got the tall trees that create this sense of like a canopy. And so, yeah, and if you walk up to these things, there's just like a different sense of shapes and stuff to it. You know, like these things all have like pretty thin trunks, so they don't feel like evergreens necessarily. And yeah, everything, as you can see, everything has this like bluish, cool haze to it, which again feels like fog. You know, this is like a foggy, misty kind of forest thing. But it does have a really different feel from place 1. You know, we can kind of push our way through these bushes. And then you kind of come to a clearing. And yeah, it's interesting to see how, like, you know, you can tell that there's only like a few, there's a relatively small number of like unique art assets here. But doing these kinds of landscapes is all about how you build those up, you know, how many variations do you have, and then like how do you arrange them together to create a sense of, yeah, this is an interesting thing right here, is there's like these trees that have like the reddish leaves, and then these trees which all of their leaves have fallen off, you know, so maybe this is fall. This does definitely feel like kind of a, like fall is turning into winter, you know, so there's like a chill in the air maybe. I don't know, that's just my interpretation of it. But yeah, yeah. And yeah, the trees are pretty thick here, you know. We're sort of picking our way through here. Yeah, it kind of looked like we got near one of the world edges, but yeah. And then yeah, this is a different little thing here. Like these trees here, they have like some brighter colored leaves. So yeah, that's another sort of shape that the author is, that the artist is playing there. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's place 2. Now, what do we got next here? Place 3, and I think place 3 might only be available in a web browser. Am I right? Yeah, place 2, place 4, and then place 5 and 6 have Linux native versions. So yeah, we're going to go over to our web browser, and we're going to launch this thing in my web browser here. And let's Alt-Enter to full screen it. And yeah, this is the one that I believe doesn't have any audio. Can we lock the mouse? And yeah, it's running a little slower because it's in a web browser. But yeah, and so we're back in the snow here. And this one has a really different feel to it. Like the visibility is much lower, and we've got, you know, the ground is very low detail. It's like mostly just a blanketing of snow, and then like these thin little, oh yeah, and it looks like there's some motion to these little weeds and grasses and stuff. And that's probably done with like a shader that like jiggles the vertexes, the vertices based on their location. And yeah, these are like these sort of aspen trees. I mean, that's what they remind me of. I have no idea what sort of real life tree, if any, the artist is going for here, but yeah, these are like I associate these with Colorado, you know, and just like the Rocky Mountains and stuff. But you know, aspens are, you know, you see aspens in a lot of places, but they have this very white bark, and so that really pops out, you know, from a distance when you see a stand of them. And in the summers, they have like these green little disc-shaped leaves, but now they don't have any of those leaves. And yeah, so it just creates this interesting, you know, distribution. We've got some bigger like little bush, branch, stick type plants coming up here. So yeah, this is like the aspen, or what I sort of imagine as aspen trees. And yeah. But then on the other side here, we've got a grove, a stand, I don't know what you call it, of another type of tree here. And these are evergreens. So they have like this kind of dark volume to them. And if you get up close and look at it, I was looking at the author's devlog, and a few times they posted like different tree brush shapes and stuff that they were playing with. And you can see these trees have like sort of a smudgy or like water. I don't know if these are watercolors. I actually don't know, and I don't think I wasn't able to determine just looking at their Tumblr. But I don't know if they draw these on like physical media and then scan them in. That would be sort of interesting because you would get like the texture of paper. But this is also definitely the kind of thing that if you have like the right brushes and the right paint program, you can definitely do stuff that looks like natural media like this. So I'm not sure how these were created, but they definitely have a really nice effect where, you know, the fact that it's really taking, as you can see, the 1-bit alpha has gone away here, and now we have like a full alpha channel sort of thing where we have variable levels of transparency, and it's being used really well with these like, you know, sort of brushy, volumetric kind of, I don't know, fir trees, or there's some sort of evergreen. I am definitely not a botanist. But yeah, and they just look real nice, and they create like this dark shape. And the way that they catch the fog, you know, like the fog is basically just adding to the value of each of the pixels that are drawn according to their depth, in a sense. I mean, I'm sure the actual implementation is more complicated than that, or who knows, but yeah, and there's like these nice little tufts of grass along the ground here, and that's cool. And yeah, this feels like, because we can see, this feels like a bigger space. You know, I don't actually know how much space there is in this one compared to the previous two, but there's definitely a sense of like a vista, and we're like, oh yeah, that actually feels like kind of a long ways away. And yeah, the way that the trees on this screenful sort of fade down almost to the exact, like the ground and the trees and the sky all fade down to almost the exact same color is really cool. You know, that's something where like you have to kind of carefully tune the colors of your textures and your skybox and the color of your fog and stuff. But yeah, when you get it right, it creates this really nice just sense of that, you know, that we recognize from the real world. And yeah, so it's just, yeah, it feels like a much more open vista. This almost feels like it could be like if it were more of a hill, it could almost be like a ski slope or something. But yeah, pretty great. And I do love these tree shapes. These tree shapes are quite nice. So yeah, that is place 3. And so now let's go to place 4. I think that one is, yeah, that one is also Windows only. Okay, so this, after all these like pretty muted colors and sort of autumn and winter atmospherics, this has like such a really different feel to it, and I really love it. Yeah, these nice vivid colors, like just this beautiful orange grass stuff, and then these blue trees. Like it's very stylized, you know, like it would be very unusual to come across a color setup like this in real life, but it works really well. I think this is one of those things that really reminds you that this is a painting and that the artist is like interpreting natural color schemes in a very particular way, and they're doing it on purpose. So yeah, these trees have kind of like a yeah, like they have a different sort of feel to them. This feels a little more watercolory. Although I don't really, you know, I'm not going to speak too much because I I did go to art school and took like some foundation classes and stuff like that. But it's been a really long time since I've done physical media like painting and stuff. So you know, I can't any guesses I could make at like how these things were created, whether it's watercolor or, you know, paints or whatever. Yeah, I just couldn't tell you. But yeah, this is, and yeah, here we're actually seeing like a sun. So yeah, this is like, you know, we're actually getting something from that. And this is really notable because the sun, these trees feel like they're casting shadows. Now I don't know if the way that this artist's like technology works, if they just painted on these shadows onto the ground, if they just painted a darker shade of orange, you know, knowing that the sun was coming from this direction and that these trees were here and that they would cast a shadow like this across the way. But it definitely does have this sense of, you know, dividing up the ground some. And yeah, and the sound, they're like the audio, there's like a cricket sort of thing, so, or just some sort of insect that's like doing this kind of low-key little chittering and stuff. And yeah, and that's really cool. And yeah, again, we've got like this beautiful atmospheric fog that just sort of goes off into the distance and gives us these depth cues. And yeah, the sky actually has a lot more features than it has in the previous ones, where we've got like these little clouds and stuff. And it's very low key, but it does add to the effect, you know. And this is a really nice vista right here. Yeah. So yeah, and I can't tell how many unique like types of trees were made for this. I can sort of recognize some of the shapes, but they all combine together really nicely, and that's really cool to see. And yeah, like the fact that they can have these very dark trunks, but then they sort of puff out and catch the fog and stuff. Yeah, I'm a fan. I love how bold the colors in this one are. It feels like autumn, or I don't know, there's something just kind of dramatic and warm about it. So yeah. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I wasn't able to find like any. I don't think there's any like debug features or anything. Like, the game developer in me definitely wants to like go into a fly mode and just like look up above this and just like see the entire little space that's been built. But no dice, and yeah, we just get to walk around it as the artist intended. So yeah, that is place 4. And that's a nice little place. So yeah, okay, so the last 2 that we looked at were made in 2014, it looks like. Oh wait, no, these were made in 2015. And so yeah, now let's go to place 5. This one actually has a native Linux version. And yeah, ooh, look at this. So there's a flashlight. It is dark enough out that it really feels like the sun has gone down and it is pretty dark out here. And our flashlight beam is like catching the grasses and these pretty skeletal trees here. So yeah, this is really kind of like just all about how that flashlight is working against this very muted, dark sort of thing. And this also feels pretty wintry. I think we can see like some snow off in the distance here, I think. And so yeah, the tree shapes take on yet another different kind of character here. They function as like pure silhouettes, albeit with very soft alpha of like little needles or something. But then when you shine the light on them, they have like, we can tell that they have kind of like a grayish, a medium grayish like native color to them. And then yeah, like this stuff is white, and it feels like snow even if it's not necessarily. I don't know, yeah, this probably is snow. But it's not like a total blanketing of snow, because all the grasses are popping up over it, and we've still got like some, you know, brownish dead grass, or dormant grass, you know, sort of stuff. And yeah, the horizon feels more like a, you know, a hard wall, not a, or, you know, it's a more coherent, hard boundary, I would say. It kind of like some of the world edges in Half-Life 2 feel a little bit like this. And yeah, now you can hear our footstep sounds have changed. And it's this really wonderful, like walking in pretty thick mud, and there's almost like a sucking sound as like our galoshes or boots or whatever are just like, you know, just squishing in and out of this mud. It's like a pretty short grass. And yeah, actually I'm curious now what these little trees over here are. I don't think I saw anything that looked like this. And then yeah, like the ground is pretty dark, and the sky, oh yeah, look, and we've got some stars in the sky. But yeah, there's sort of like an ambient light haze at the horizon. You know, which if you've ever lived in or visited a place where it does snow like this, you know, snow like really changes the Earth's like albedo, like how much it reflects light. And so you get this effect where it's like, you know, the moon, or even just like, you know, I don't know, yeah, like it creates this sense of like glowing at the horizon. Yeah, that just feels really authentic. So yeah, these are some trees, I guess. They're sort of like a more smoky, watercolory or sketchy or something. These almost feel like it could be like soft charcoal or something. But yeah. Oh yeah, and then like some prairie grasses or something. Yeah. And yeah, I really like the shape of that horizon there. That's like a just very gentle hill. So yeah, so that is, yeah, that's place 5. And so at this point, I'm not sure what the distinction between these different things are, but the next thing that the author released was Sketch 1. And I don't know if like these are specifically intended to be more sketchy or something, but yeah, and I think Sketch 1 and Sketch 2 are browser only, so let's open them up. Yeah, and these are dated now, so May of 2016. And yeah, and like the author is like, I looked into the technology a little bit that appears to be being used here. It's using SDL2, which is like a windowing. It's like the same like multimedia handling toolkit sort of thing. Simple direct media layer that I use for Playski, actually. SDL2 gives me a viewport to render to, and it gives me a queue of input events so I can respond to player input and stuff like that. And, you know, just handles a lot of that platform layer stuff. And there's a version of it that you can compile to, oh yeah, wait, what's going on here? Why are we, seem to be stuck downloading here. There we go. There's a version, like the technology is such that you can actually compile it to code that will run in a web browser. I'm pretty sure it uses Emscripten, which compiles your C code into JavaScript that can run in a web browser. So yeah, this is Sketch 1. And yeah, and so we've got like this very prominent mountain type feature. And this feels like, yeah, the sun is maybe just at the horizon or something. And it feels like it's definitely snowing. We've got like these little flakes on the wind, so it feels pretty chilly. And the trees, like, have like some of these trees like have sort of a bend to them, which is interesting. And yeah, they're, I mean, if you've ever gone to a museum and looked at like a lot of different landscape paintings or like a lot of landscapes by the same artist or something, it really gives you an appreciation for how the human eye, like, and the artist's mind, like, deconstruct, because there's so many different types of trees, and for any given tree there's a bunch of different ways to like represent that. Like, do you focus on the branches as lines and make it all about that? Do you focus on the leaves as like these volumes, as like these puffy volumes and stuff? And it's art, and there's no right way or wrong way to do it, really. So it's always interesting. I think that's one of the interesting things about this series, is that you get a chance you get a good sense of like the artist getting interested in different kinds of trees and representing them in different ways. And this one is pretty line intensive. It's like creating these like really silhouette distinct shapes out of all these trees. And they've just like, almost entirely lost their leaves. And the ground is, sort of patchy, like, we're getting like slightly different variations in the color of the grass. It's pretty dark and muted. And yeah, and the horizon, like the rising and falling of these hills creates a pretty distinctive shape. And yeah, it seems like there's a little bit of shape to the sky. Yeah, there's like this dark cloud over here. Yeah, that really feels like something. And yeah, that cloud is moving pretty quick. So there's a sense that like the air up above us is moving really quickly. And then yeah, this kind of little barren patch. And yeah, these are shadows. I don't know if they've been painted on, or if they're getting rendered into a shadow map, or being cast by some sort of shadowing system. But yeah, it's cool. Oh wow, and I just now realized, yeah, like we can see the sun off in the distance, but it's very weak. It's being filtered through atmosphere, or maybe it's the moon, but it does feel like a lot of the light is coming from there. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, and you can see like how I think the artist like has a pretty good sense of like how much fidelity they want to use. Because like the modern like AAA mindset is like just get the most pixels and the most textures and the most polygons on screen possible, because all of that means that the technology is fancy and that we have armies of artists who can crank this stuff out. And so yeah, the aesthetics of AAA games have always kind of been about like maximum fidelity, just really flexing it constantly. Whereas when you're a lone artist, you're like, well, I can only create so much visual information and visual fidelity. What am I going to use it for? I'm going to let this one thing be sort of low detail because it doesn't need any more detail, or like that's where I'm not choosing to spend my time there compared to something else that I'm more interested in. And I think that's like really valid, and if you're a solo creator just doing independent work like this, that's what you got to do. And I think a lot of those constraints are very like liberating, and it produces a lot of beautiful stuff. So yeah, that's sketch 1. And I think sketch 2 is also browser only, so we'll jump into that. And yeah, this one you can kind of tell is also very, let's go into full screen here. And yeah, we are back to really bold, beautiful colors here. And yeah, we've got like big puffy clouds up in the sky, and some crickets singing for us. And yeah, there's like these sort of white, I mean, they feel like blossoms to me, because like this doesn't feel like a winter snow-covered thing. But yeah, they just like sort of pop out from the surrounding mass of like this orange golden grass stuff. And then these trees have like a few different colors going on in them. They have like that kind of smoke-like volume sense to them, that we saw back in like place, I forget the numbers already, but like place 3 or something. But this time we're seeing like reds and greens blending together, and that's really cool. I really love like just the gentle blue of the sky, and then these things kind of going up against that. Hey everybody, welcome. Yeah, some folks have shown up here, and yeah, thanks. I'm seeing a lot of WOD Wednesday regulars and old friends of the stream and all that. But yeah, there's no demons this time. We're just walking around in some paintings. And yeah, this is really like this feels, you know, a lot more alive and vibrant than some of the other ones. And yeah, it's really pretty. It's calm, you know. It feels like this feels like it could be t-shirt weather, or maybe just a warm jumper or something. And yeah, like I think the skybox here is, you know, it takes some work to like make a textured tile evenly across its entire surface. So that I think that's why we're seeing those seams. But you know, I think this being called sketch, a sketch, sort of positions expectations correctly. You know, because with a sketch, you know, if you look at even like sketches from like Rembrandt and like the old masters and stuff, when they do a sketch, sometimes it'll just, you know, there'll just be these edges to it, and it'll be like that wasn't the part that the artist was interested in working on. And you can you know, it's not like they made a mistake and forgot to like give their portrait subject legs or something. They were just, you know, it was a study, it was a sketch, whatever. And yeah. And yeah, there's like these dark green bushes that are, you know, kind of more our scale. I think landscapes, you know, get you to think a lot about scale, you know, especially if they, like, whether they have architecture, any human created stuff in them, or if they're just naturey. You know, I think humans are kind of hungry for information that lets us know how big things are and like what distances are and stuff like that. So I think the artist pretty naturally stumbled into like, okay, these grasses are like shorter than us, and they just provide like this, you know, this field of stuff. And then we've got these bushes that feel like, you know, human, or like they're human scale, even if they are like the size of a Volkswagen or something. And then these trees, which are way bigger than us. So yeah, you know, like that, I think that's something that kind of like completes the scene. You know, none of these seem like they've had rocks, like, you know, stones or like geological features in them aside from just hills. And I think that's, you know, like this is specifically what the what they're interested in. And this is interesting. This is like almost like a bright thing of sun, like a little ray of sun cutting through here. And, you know, the fact that you can kind of like see it as you step through it is really cool. And yeah, there's definitely a little more texture and color going on down by the trunks here. Yeah. It's got that kind of lightish aspen bark, so yeah. I don't even actually know what part of the world this this artist is from, so I don't know if these are like forests in Europe or Asia somewhere or North America or what, but yeah. Okay, cool. Well, that was sketch 2. And now I think, yeah, I think these things start having, yeah, Linux versions. So I'm going to play those natively just because the performance tends to be a little better. Sketch 3, yeah, there we go. Cool. Okay. Okay, so this is sketch 3. And these colors are definitely more muted. Got like sort of some light, earthy colors here. Oh yeah, I remember these trees. Yeah, so this is like a very different approach to suggesting the volumes of these trees. There are like these, you know, just the little like high frequency lines that are like the branches and the leaves and stuff coming off. But then there's also like these like little arcs, you know, that are creating a sense, that are like bounding those little fan volumes and creating a sense of, you know, like this round kind of shape. And it almost tells us like what these trees would look like when they had leaves, you know. Um, so that's neat. Like it's a, you know, we haven't seen anything quite like this before, but yeah. And yeah, these are like little tall, skinny things. And yeah, they're very sketchy. You know, you can kind of like see almost some of the texture of the pencil and see some light through them and all that. So, oh wow, yeah, we're like right at a world edge. Let's go this way. Oh, okay, yeah, and this is like a bush kind of thing. Oh yes, yeah, yeah. You know, it's possible that I missed this in earlier sketches / places, but this is a water surface, and it's like very still water, and it's like rendering. You know, we've got this cool reflection of these shapes that we're seeing. So this feels like a marsh, you know, like a pond or a marsh or something. And yeah, the way that, you know, the light in the sky gets reflected in that is really cool. And this is just like a beautiful shape, you know, with the hill going down to the water like that and creating this reflection. Yeah, we're getting some sloshy sounds as we go through the water. Can we walk across the? Yeah, I think we might be technically swimming here. Oh wow, yeah, and we're moving differently too. Yeah, we're like kind of, yeah, these are like swimming strokes that are they're pushing us along. Oh, and yeah, these seem like different sort of trees. They have kind of lavender trunks. And yeah, the sky is pretty bright, and yeah, it creates just this really nice, it's very much about the reflections. Yeah, it's very pleasant. Yeah, just some tiny little grasses and weeds and stuff here. Yeah, so that's really cool. Okay, so yeah, that was sketch 3. And then it looks like the artist did place 6. Hello, welcome. Place 6, yeah. Okay. All right. And so yeah, we're again seeing like those outline shapes that are kind of bounding the leafy volumes. And this one, yeah, the things that I remember about this one are that it has like this little. It's something that we saw a couple of sketches ago, but it's like this ray of sun that's just kind of slicing a line through here. I mean, I assume it's a ray of sun. Like this feels like the sun is illuminating it. I mean, the sun is always like very diffuse in these, but it feels more like that. Oh wow, yeah, actually we've got a run key. It feels more like that than like a path. You know, a path, the grass would like kind of fade down and stuff. And then we've also got some reflective water here. Yeah, I think these are some of the same like bush shapes from the previous one. But yeah, and so like this is a really different effect from the last one, where the water is like predominantly dark, but it's still very reflective, although you can kind of see stuff through it, and maybe some of the fog creating like some murk down there. But yeah, the thing, I really like the way that the trees look on the far shore here. You know, like it feels like the sun is hitting them and it's creating like these dark patches behind them. And yeah, it just looks neat. Like, I don't know. And yeah, it's really nice to see how the reflection in the water tones that down, sort of. And then it gets dark over here because, yeah, this is more silhouetted by the sun or just out of the light. And yeah, it just really feels like, ooh, yeah, okay, and this is feeling more like a dense forest. Okay, yeah, these things have very, very thick trunks. And yeah, that's really nice to see too. Just different levels of density happening. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so that was place 6. And so next, we're going to play Sketch 4 from April 2017. Cool, yeah, thanks for dropping by, folks. So this is something that we haven't really seen before in these. This is like green, you know, this feels like it could be spring or summer in an evergreen forest, and we're just seeing a whole lot of green here. We've got these very tall conifers of different types. Some of them, their leaves, their needles like start very low to the ground, and then some of them go up a fair ways. And yeah, it looks like these have like low-hanging branches that have like some moss growing on them or something. That's really nice. And we've got like these little light flower blossoms. And yeah, it's just like a really nice lush type effect. This one feels pretty unique, you know, like the artist hasn't done one that's quite like this before. Actually, let me run over here, because it looks like these have, these little light brushstrokes are definitely suggestive of like pine cones. They're just like clustered in bunches up towards the top. And that adds a splash of a different kind of color. Yeah, and then this is an interesting part. Like, so this feels like, you know, there's still like a lot of grasses and stuff, so it almost feels like a pond that kind of like overflowed or something. And it's reflecting the trees, and yeah, it's a really nice effect. And yeah, it's, here we've got, you know, the water is reflecting something that's pretty high contrast, you know, the dark shapes of the trees against the bright sky. And yeah, that's nice. And then yeah, the sky itself is like, it feels kind of cooler up at the top of the sky dome, and then down towards the horizon it's sort of orangish pinkish. And that's nice. We've got some little baby trees here with nice like fat brush strokes. Yeah, it looks really nice when you zoom, when you step back and just sort of look at all these different things kind of hanging together. So yeah. Yeah, so that's Sketch 4. And now let's play Sketch 5 from February of 2018. Okay, this is another winter scene, and yeah, some interesting new shapes and stuff going on here. These trees are like pretty high frequency, and they've got like a lot of, there's like this interplay of light being suggested by how the branches, you know, like it's sort of spatter painted. So it's like these branches are covered with snow, and or the sun is like kind of slicing through some of the other branches and creating like this kind of stencil-like effect almost. And, you know, like the grass is like this medium gray, and then we've got like these high contrast trees, and then off in the distance we've got, oh, and this is water as well. I kind of get the impression that once the artist started adding these water surfaces, that it was hard not to do that, because it just creates this whole other compositional tool, you know, for reflecting the scene and all that kind of stuff. It's also useful for bounding the actual navigable space, although I'm guessing I can, yeah, I've got the same swim controls here, so I guess I can go over to this little island maybe. And yeah, if I recall, I think the artist on their dev blog on Tumblr, they were talking about they added like a little better support for painting terrain or something. I think maybe they just added hot reload support for, yeah, like, because, yeah, so for those who have never like made an environment like this in a 3D engine, a lot of times the way terrain is represented is with, there's actually just a black and white and gray image where the lighter pixels are higher areas of terrain and darker pixels are lower areas of terrain. And what's useful about that is that you can just like paint it in your paint program and use like soft things to like brighten up a patch to create a little hill, or darken a patch to push it down and all that. And so yeah, one of the dev blog entries was about the artist like creating basically just adding hot reloading support so that you can have the game open, have your engine open, and then save your thing in Photoshop and then see it immediately reflected without having to like save and get back to the spot that you were trying to look at something from. So yeah, this is like a really nice distant view, and we can really see like how the light and then like the contrast built into these tree textures is interacting to create this sense of like, you know, light overlapping dark. And it's pretty high frequency, you know, like there's a lot of like little details and stuff happening. But, you know, from a distance, it all gets kind of like reduced down to like a low contrast sort of noise. And it really, you know, tickles your sense of like that you're looking at a real landscape. Because in nature, we go out into nature, and when we see a forest, you know, there's a lot of like noise and stuff, but then like our brain just kind of averages it all out to cope with it, you know, and just so that we're not overwhelmed and we can just kind of appreciate it. You know, I mean, I guess that phrase, see the forest for the trees, you know, there's sort of a duality there in cognition and perception where, depending on how we're focusing our brain towards thinking about and looking at stuff, we can either see a tree or a forest. Yeah. Oh wow, and this is like some big smudgy type shape or something. It's like a big bush. It's possible that like, you know, I think there's like more and less recommended areas to be looking at up close in these, so, you know, I don't know if necessarily viewing all of the cool vantage points here that the artist wanted me to look at, but you know, these are pretty open-ended, easygoing experiences, as you can tell. So yeah, and yeah, that's just a lovely view. It's like, yeah, you know, and if you look back on like the early places and stuff, you can really see how the artist is progressing here at like just getting better and better and improving their technology and improving their art approaches and trying out different ideas. You know, it's not a linear progression, but there is definitely like a deepening understanding and changing interests and stuff like that. So yeah, and that brings us to the most recent one, which was done only a few months ago in October 2019, Sketch 6. So yeah, let's go to that one. Okay. Yeah, it goes full screen automatically. And yeah, I think the artist either upgraded their technology or, I don't know, like, because this runs at a very nice frame rate, and it's got a few more whistles and bells, like when you hit escape, this quit prompt comes up, and, I don't know, the particle, like the little leaves blowing in the wind stuff. But aside from just, like, the technical stuff, I think this is also doing some really interesting stuff with, like, color and shape. We've got, like, these distinct, like, yeah. So this is just, you know, this is sort of building on like the high frequency stencil-y type approach of the previous trees, but sometimes it's creating these cutouts of like a pretty vivid color like this red here. And that's really neat. Oh yeah, and I love this. This is just beautiful, like this bleary sort of red sun, and just seeing it through multiple layers of tree branches and stuff. You know, it definitely gets the feeling that it's like a late evening, and yeah, leaves are falling from the trees. Yeah, and then the fog. You know, the fog isn't super strong here, but it does create a little bit of atmosphere. And then we've got like these shocks of color like at the horizon, you know, like that darkish red and stuff like that. So it feels very expressionistic and stuff. Yeah, just a few more of these kinds of things. Another little like stripe of color. Little hill rising up out of the pond. And yeah, seeing some of the red of the sun reflected in the water, but you know, it's just very gentle. That feels really cool. Curious to see what's over on this hill. This reminds me of a quest in Oblivion where you get to literally go into a painting to rescue a painter from painted trolls. That's cool. I don't think I had found that. I definitely did not 100% Oblivion, but that sounds like a really cool quest. There is also a game called Eastshade that is about being a painter in an Elder Scrolls type fantasy world. And it's cool. Like, I've played like a few hours of it, and yeah, it's like it's a open-ended exploration game where you just have like this large fantasy kingdom to wander all over, and there's people you talk to and you get quests, but the main thing that you do is you're a painter and you make canvases out of stuff, and then you can put down that canvas and then basically create a painting, which involves, it's basically like it's you know, it's like if the screenshot tool were fictionalized to the point of being the central mechanic and story thing. So yeah, Eastshade is, I don't know, I've found it cool so far. You know, we could see some of that stuff that we were seeing up close from a distance. And yeah, like the use of like that rusty red color, I think is my favorite thing about this. And then yeah, just that bleary reddish sort of sun. Just really pretty stuff. So yeah. Yeah, and the water is just kind of doing a gentle ripple. I think making the water, you know, this water isn't entirely opaque, but you know, it does mostly reflect. And it, you know, it definitely reminds me of like Half-Life 2's water, which, you know, was an early stab at like pixel shader water type stuff that isn't completely transparent and doesn't look like crystal Caribbean blue water or something. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that is sketch 6. So yeah, I just, you know, I started looking at these like, you know, recently, and I realized that I really liked all of these as a piece. I love it when, you know, I like when there's a series of short works like this where the artist is clearly developing an idea and exploring different little directions within it. I really like seeing an artist progress like this, you know, from like, you know, over the course of like 6 years now, basically, and just getting better and better and going after different ideas and all that. This is, so yeah, I think that this is a really cool body of work, and I would be very proud to have made something like this. And maybe I will at some point. You know, it won't be exactly like this, but yeah, I think this is really cool, and yeah, I just wanted to stream it and just kind of do like a little bit of commentary and appreciation, and just kind of look at all of these together. So yeah, thank you so much. That's about all I got. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and yeah. Yeah, I will see some of y'all every Wednesday. For those who don't know, every Wednesday I stream randomly chosen Doom levels from the id Games archive, and you know, that frequently involves blasting demons. But you never know. There's people who've made a whole bunch of wild, different stuff with Doom. So yeah, tune in for WOD Wednesdays if that sounds like your bag. But yeah, this was Places. The URL is jlv.fi/places. And yeah, you can play most of these in a web browser or Windows or Linux. And yeah, there's the dev blog. And yeah, it's really cool stuff. So that's what I got. And yeah, yeah, y'all have a happy new year. I hope your 2020 gets off to a good start. And yeah, I guess the first WOD Wednesday of the year will be on New Year's Day. So I'll see y'all then, and until then, have a lovely day.